Welcome to The Night Story, a place where true, unsettling experiences are told in the quiet. Tonight's stories didn't happen in ordinary places. They occurred on islands that feel wrong, isolated, cut off from help, and from logic. Before we begin, if you find yourself drawn to stories like this, support the channel by subscribing. It helps these stories continue to be told. Now, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Turn the lights down and remember, some islands don't want visitors and some never let them leave. The dock was the last place I saw another person standing still. After that, I was alone. I wasn't visiting Hashima Island as a tourist. I was there for work. I'm an architectural researcher. I study post-industrial housing, how communities were designed around labor, how people adapted to tight vertical spaces when land was limited. Hashima had always been one of the most extreme examples, an entire residential district built on concrete, surrounded by open sea. When the coal mine shut down in 1974, nearly everyone left within months. The buildings were never redeveloped. They were simply left. Most visits today are guided tours restricted to reinforced pathways. I arranged special access through a local contact in Nagasaki. Limited documentation rights near certain structures. Nothing deep inside. Nothing structurally unstable. The guide met me at the harbor, quiet, professional, in his 40s maybe. He spoke softly but directly. On the boat ride out, he explained the rules twice. You do not go far inside. I understand. You remain where I can see the building entrance. I understand. He nodded once. The island appeared through the haze like a concrete silhouette. From a distance, it looks like a battleship. Up close, it feels smaller than photographs suggest. Compressed, dense, closed in. We docked along the reinforced landing area. The sea was calm, the sky overcast, no harsh shadows. When I stepped onto the island, the first thing I noticed wasn't decay. It was the silence. No birds, no insects, no movement, just wind brushing faintly against concrete. The guide secured the boat and remained at the dock. I stay here, he said. 2 hours. He didn't smile. I began documenting exterior structures first. Balcony grids, exposed steel reinforcement, fractured stairwells. Every footstep echoed sharply against the buildings. The sound felt too large for the space. After about 30 minutes, I approached one of the main residential blocks facing inland. The lower levels had partially collapsed over time, but a side corridor remained accessible and appeared structurally intact near the entrance. I turned once. The guide stood at the dock, watching. I stepped inside. The temperature dropped immediately. The corridor was narrow, lined with door frames stripped bare. No doors remained. The floor was concrete, uneven, in patches where moisture had eroded the surface. Light filtered faintly through openings at the far end. I began recording voice notes, structural analysis, moisture damage, concrete spalling patterns. My voice echoed unnaturally, thin, hollow. After a few minutes, I stopped speaking, because something beneath my own echo began to register. At first, I thought it was the sea reverberating through cavities in the building, a low, layered vibration. But it wasn't rhythmic like waves. It sounded like overlapping murmurs, not distinct words, not directional, just multiple low tones blending together. I stood still. The sound didn't approach. It didn't fade. It simply existed. I told myself it was acoustics, sound distortion through hollow corridors. Then I heard it, a door slam, sharp, close. I flinched. There were no doors. The sound had come from deeper inside the structure. I waited for debris to fall, for something to shift. Nothing followed. The murmuring stopped instantly. The silence that replaced it felt heavier than before. I moved further down the corridor, slowly, deliberately, just to confirm it was empty. I turned into a side hallway that once led to shared living quarters. Halfway down, I saw him. A man standing in a doorway at the far end. He wasn't shadow, he wasn't distorted. He was solid, wearing dark work clothes, long sleeves, loose pants, boots. He stood upright, arms at his sides, facing me. My first thought was practical. Another researcher. Unauthorized visitor. "Hello," I called out. My voice bounced back thinner than before. He didn't respond, didn't shift, didn't blink. I took one step forward. The light shifted slightly as clouds moved overhead. I blinked. The doorway was empty, not slowly empty, not someone stepping away, just empty. I walked to the doorway. The room beyond was bare, cracked concrete, collapsed ceiling in one corner, dust thick enough to record disturbance. There were no footprints but mine, no secondary exit, no alcove large enough to conceal someone without sound. That's when I checked my phone. Over an hour had passed. I stared at the screen. That wasn't possible. It felt like 15 minutes, 20 at most. I tried to reconstruct it, entering, recording, hearing the slam, seeing the man, walking to the doorway. There wasn't enough memory to fill an hour. My chest tightened, not panic, just confusion. Then I heard my name, faint, carried through layers of concrete. The guide, calling me. And there was something different in his tone now. Urgency. I walked quickly back through the corridor and stepped into open air. Wind hit my face like surfacing from underwater. The guide was no longer standing still. He was pacing along the dock. "How long?" I asked. "You were inside more than 1 hour," he said. "I wasn't." "You did not answer when I called." "I didn't hear you." He studied my face carefully. Then he looked at the building. "Inside," he said quietly, "sound changes." We left earlier than planned. On the boat ride back, neither of us spoke much. That night in Nagasaki, I reviewed my recordings. The first several voice notes were intact. Structural observations, timestamps consistent. Then there was a gap. 49 minutes, no audio. I don't remember stopping the recording. Then I checked the photos. The first hallway image looked normal, concrete, door frames, light at the end. The second image, taken 53 minutes later, was closer to the doorway where I'd seen the man. And there, standing in the frame, was a shape, subtle, dark, against darker shadow, human in proportion, facing toward the camera. I don't remember taking that second photo. The metadata confirmed the time. I zoomed in. The outline remained. Shoulders, head, arms at sides. There's something else I didn't notice until days later. In that second image, the figure isn't facing the lens directly. It's slightly turned, head angled, as if looking past whoever is holding the phone, looking at something else in the hallway, something behind the camera. I returned to my notes weeks later, trying to reconstruct the missing hour. There's no gap in my physical memory of movement, no dizziness, no sense of disorientation. I remember silence, the corridor, the man, and the feeling that I wasn't being approached, not threatened, just observed, calmly, from a distance. The dock was the last place I saw another person standing still. After that, I'm not entirely certain who was watching whom. We didn't plan on doing anything illegal that night. That part matters. Because when something goes wrong in a place you're not supposed to be, you hesitate before calling for help. My cousin Marco lives just outside Venice. I was staying with him for a week one summer, and by the third night, we were bored, in the way people get when they think they've already seen everything. That's when he mentioned the island, Poveglia. He said it casually, like it was just another empty patch of land in the lagoon. "It's abandoned," he told us. "Old hospital, no one goes there." That wasn't exactly true. People go there, they just aren't allowed to. 2 of my friends were visiting with me, Daniel and Chris. All 4 of us were in our 20s, old enough to know better. young enough not to care. We rented a small motorboat under Marco's name. Nothing fancy, just enough to get us across the water before midnight. The lagoon was dark in a way that feels heavy. Venice at night still glows in the distance, warm lights, faint movement, life. But as we steered away from the main canals, everything thinned out. The island appeared slowly, a black shape against darker water. No lights, no sound, just the outline of trees and a tall bell tower rising above the roofline of a crumbling building. We cut the engine before getting too close. The silence pressed in immediately, water lapping against wood. That was it. We tied up along a broken stone edge and climbed onto land. The air smelled damp, not rotten, just old, like stone that hasn't dried in decades. No one spoke loudly. We all kept our voices low without discussing it. The building nearest the shore had blown out windows and vines crawling through the frames. The doors were gone. Inside, the floor was layered with dust and fragments of plaster. Our phone flashlights cut thin beams through the dark. "Smells like mold," Daniel muttered. It did, and something else underneath it. Metallic, faint. We moved slowly through the first corridor, paint peeled in long strips from the walls. Doors hung crooked on rusted hinges. It felt abandoned in the way buildings do after time has claimed them. Not dramatic, not staged, just empty. We found a staircase near the center of the structure. The steps were stone, worn, and slightly concave from age. Marco went first. The second floor opened into what looked like former patient rooms. Metal bed frames still stood in place, stripped of mattresses. Some were overturned. Others lined the walls as if someone had arranged them years ago and never returned. I remember thinking it was less theatrical than I expected. Just quiet neglect. Then we heard it, a metallic scrape, loud, from downstairs. Not a crash, not something falling. It sounded exactly like a bed frame being dragged across stone. All four of us froze. The sound stopped. Silence again. Chris whispered, "That wasn't us." No one answered. We waited. 5 seconds, 10. Then, a single footstep. Below us, heavy, measured. Not running, not stumbling, just walking. Up the stairs. The rhythm was wrong for imagination. There was weight behind it. Marco hissed, "Turn off your lights." We did. The darkness swallowed us instantly. The only light left was faint moonlight filtering through broken windows at the end of the hall. The footsteps continued, slow, deliberate, stone creaking slightly under pressure. I remember feeling something I hadn't expected. Embarrassment, like we'd been caught doing something stupid. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs, stopped. No breathing yet, no dramatic pause, just presence. Then, a shift in weight. Right outside the room we were in, the air changed. You could feel someone occupying the space beyond the doorway, and then we heard it. Breathing, slow, deep, controlled, close enough that it didn't echo. Whoever it was, they weren't rushing us. They were standing there, listening. Daniel's breathing became uneven beside me. I could hear him trying to control it. Marco whispered, barely audible, "Probably security." But it didn't sound like security. It sounded like someone who already knew we were there. A floorboard creaked. Closer. Chris broke first. He bolted toward the hallway, brushing past me. The breathing stopped, and the footsteps started again. Faster now, not sprinting, but purposeful, chasing. We ran. Adrenaline narrowed everything. Flashlights flicked back on in chaotic beams. Shadows leapt across the walls. We reached the staircase. As we descended, I heard something behind us. Not words, but a low sound, almost like someone clearing their throat. Close. Too close. We didn't stop until we were outside. The air hit cold against my face. We ran toward the shoreline. The boat was still there. Thank God. We untied it with shaking hands. As Marco started the engine, I turned back toward the building, Second floor, far left window. There was a silhouette, tall, still, not waving, not moving, just standing there, watching. I couldn't see details, no face, no clothing, but the shape was unmistakably human. The engine sputtered to life. We pulled away. No one spoke until the island became a dark mass behind us. Marco did a head count out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4. We were all there. We laughed nervously, said it was probably security, or some homeless guy using the building for shelter. We told ourselves that over and over. But here's the part that stayed with me: the breathing. It hadn't sounded surprised, it hadn't sounded angry. It sounded calm, like whoever it was had been waiting. Back at Marco's place, we tried to sleep. Around 3 a.m., Daniel sat up abruptly on the couch. "Did you guys hear that?" We listened. Nothing. He shook his head. "Thought I heard something outside." We brushed it off. The next morning, Marco checked his phone. He frowned. "There's a video here I didn't take." He showed us. It was a 12-second clip, recorded at 11:47 p.m. The timestamp matched when we were inside the building. The camera pointed downward at the stone floor. Dark, shaky. Then it slowly tilted up. The image caught the doorway of the room we'd been hiding in, empty, silent. And then, at the edge of the frame, a shape moved past the hallway, not into the room, past it, close enough to distort the light slightly. The camera jolted, like whoever was holding it realized something. Then the video ended. Marco swore he hadn't recorded it. None of us had touched his phone. We stood there replaying it in silence. Daniel said what I was thinking. "If that's recording, who's holding the phone?" No one answered. Marco deleted it. Immediately. Said he didn't want it on his device. That should have been the end of it. Just a stupid story about sneaking onto an island. But 2 days later, Marco got a call. It was from the boat rental company. They asked if everything had gone smoothly. He said yes. They paused. Then the man said, "You didn't go near Poveglia, correct?" Marco hesitated. "No." Another pause. "Good," the man said. "It's not safe." After the call ended, Marco admitted something. When we first approached the island, before we cut the engine, he'd seen a small boat already tied on the far side. He assumed it belonged to fishermen. But when we left, there hadn't been any other boats, no lights, no sound of engines leaving, just us. A week later, I was back home. I tried not to think about it. Then I got a message from Chris. It was a photo, taken from the boat as we were leaving. I hadn't seen it before. He said he found it while clearing storage. The image showed the hospital building in the distance. Second floor. Same window I'd stared at, zoomed in. There was someone there, clearer than I remembered. Not a shadow. A person, standing unnaturally straight, head slightly tilted, facing directly toward the water, toward us. What bothered me most wasn't the figure. It was what was just behind him, in the darkness of the hallway. Another outline, fainter, standing a few feet back, watching him, watching us. Chris deleted the photo after sending it, said he didn't want it on his phone. None of us ever reported what happened, because what would we say? We broke onto private property, heard footsteps, saw someone, that's it. Perfectly explainable. Probably. But sometimes when I'm alone at night, I think about that breathing outside the doorway. Not rushed, not angry, just steady. As if whoever it was had all the time in the world. And we were the ones who interrupted something. Something that didn't mind waiting for the next boat.